Hello guys, this is new crazy Reddit story.
Title: The show nobody watched, or so I thought. Okay, so hear me out. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I have to ask, has anyone else ever heard of The Lost Planet? I swear, I'm the only person who remembers it. I've Googled it, asked around, and even tried asking people on Reddit, but no one seems to know what I'm talking about. It's like this show existed only in some weird alternate dimension and vanished from existence the moment I stopped watching it. But I can't be the only one who saw it, right? Here's how I remember it. I was about 10 years old, probably in the late 90s, when I first stumbled across The Lost Planet. I was one of those kids who watched anything, and I mean anything, that came on TV. I didn't care if it was a cartoon, a weird sci-fi show, or even infomercials. So when I flipped on this obscure channel one evening, there it was, The Lost Planet. The intro was super mysterious, with this low-key, haunting theme song that would have probably made any normal kid run for the hills, but not me. I was intrigued. The show was set on this desolate, seemingly abandoned planet, and the characters, humans, aliens, or something else entirely, were stuck there, trying to survive. The whole vibe of the show was eerie, but in that cool, secretive way that made you feel like you were part of some hidden club. The planet was full of strange landscapes, hostile creatures, and bizarre technologies that didn't make sense. There were some human survivors who had crash-landed there, but there were also a bunch of other characters, alien beings who were clearly not friendly, but also not exactly evil. The whole thing was about figuring out how to survive and maybe, just maybe, escape. What really stuck with me, though, was the main character, a young girl named Ella. She wasn't the typical heroic type. She wasn't some magical chosen one or a super skilled survivor. She was just a normal girl who had to figure things out, often stumbling through impossible situations. Honestly, I think that's what made me love the show. Ella felt real. She wasn't invincible, and she didn't have all the answers. She was just doing her best in a really messed up situation, and that made her relatable. But here's the kicker. The show was weird. Like, really weird. The plot was always all over the place, sometimes making no sense at all. One episode, you'd have some intense alien battle, and the next, Ella would be trying to find a way to open an ancient temple to unlock some mysterious artifact that was crucial for their survival. Except the artifact was a toaster. Yes, you heard that right. A toaster. I don't even know if I'm remembering that part correctly, but I swear that episode happened. I tried to explain this show to my friends back then, but no one ever knew what I was talking about. They'd look at me like I was crazy, and even the adults I mentioned it to seemed confused. My parents thought I made it up or misremembered some other show, but I knew what I'd seen. I just had no way to prove it. I mean, this was before you could just search everything on the internet. You had to rely on TV guides or word of mouth, and neither of those had anything to say about the Lost Planet. So, for years, I just carried this weird, slightly unsettling memory with me. Every once in a while, I'd think about the show and wonder if maybe I'd imagined it. But I know I didn't. I remember the feeling of watching the show late at night, with the dim glow of the TV lighting up the living room. I can almost hear the theme song in my head, even now. It had this echoey, almost haunting vibe to it, and I can still see some of the strange landscapes from the show in my mind. The planet was both alien and familiar at the same time, like it was both a place of wonder and a place where you never, ever wanted to end up alone. Now that I'm older, I've tried to find anything about the Lost Planet online. I've searched, scoured, and Googled every possible variation of the title. No results. It's like the show never existed. If I bring it up to anyone, they look at me like I'm talking about some weird fever dream. And trust me, I'm not the type to make up random memories, especially when no one else seems to recall it. But the weirdest part is, I swear I remember the network it aired on, Channel 27. It wasn't one of the big networks like NBC or ABC. It was one of those local cable channels, the ones that seemed to air weird or niche shows late at night. And I know it aired at some weird time too, like 2 a.m. or something, which only added to the mystique of it all. So, here I am, still wondering if The Lost Planet was a figment of my childhood imagination, or if I was just unlucky enough to discover some obscure, forgotten show that no one else watched. I can't find any information about it, and I've tried asking my childhood friends and family, but no one else remembers it either. It's like the show was erased from history, and I'm the only one who's still haunted by it. If anyone else out there knows what I'm talking about, please, Please let me know. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe the lost planet really was real, and it's just waiting to be rediscovered by someone who wasn't too young or too distracted to remember it properly. But until then, I guess I'll just keep asking, is the Lost Planet a show that nobody else watched? Because if it really was as weird as I remember, I'm probably the only one left who knows it ever existed. Okay, I need to get this off my chest because I've never been able to figure it out. I've spent years thinking I must have imagined it, but I swear I remember this bizarre, creepy game show from my childhood. The thing is, no one else I've ever spoken to remembers it, which makes me think I'm either crazy or this show was some kind of weird fever dream. But hear me out. Has anyone else ever heard of the Haunted Quiz? I'm not talking about some ghost-themed trivia show. I mean the Haunted Quiz. It wasn't on any big network that I could find, and it definitely wasn't anything that would pop up in normal TV guides. The show had a very low-budget, local feel to it, and I'm almost certain it aired in the early 2000s, like around 2002 or 2003. It was broadcast late at night on some obscure channel, Channel 54 or something like that. It wasn't one of the mainstream ones. I distinctly remember flipping through the channels one night when I was about 8 years old and coming across this strange game show. It was kind of like any other quiz show, but with a completely eerie twist. The set was dark, with dim lighting and fog machines that pumped out this heavy, ghostly mist. The contestants, there were usually 3 of them, sat in chairs that looked like they were made out of old, decrepit wood, and they had this weird, haunted appearance about them. The host was this guy who had the most unsettling smile I've ever seen. I mean, he wasn't even smiling, but his mouth was slightly open in a way that made him look like he was hiding something sinister. His voice had this deep, almost hypnotic tone, like he was trying to lure you into some kind of trance. What made it even weirder was the way the questions were asked. Most of them seemed to be about random trivia, like, what's the capital of France? Or, what's the largest ocean? But then there would be the occasional question that didn't make any sense. Stuff like, what color was the door to the house on 15th Street, 3rd Avenue? Or what is the exact moment the sun will set in the year 2070? And no, the questions weren't about things that were filmed or documented. The show often asked things about specific locations or obscure events, stuff that wasn't even common knowledge. The contestants would sit there, looking at each other, clearly confused but trying their best to answer anyway. And here's where it got creepy. Sometimes, when someone answered incorrectly, you could hear this strange noise, like a whisper or maybe a soft giggle, coming from the speakers, but it wasn't coming from anyone on the stage. It would happen during the pauses between answers, and I remember it being distinctly unsettling. But the real weirdness kicked in after the 3rd round. Every time someone answered wrong, the game would switch gears. The set would go completely dark, and the fog machines would go crazy. You'd hear this loud, eerie chime, and then they'd vanish. The contestants, the host, the entire set, gone. Poof, vanished into thin air. It wasn't like they were just disappearing for a commercial break, either. They were just gone. The camera would cut to a close-up of the empty chairs, and a strange, eerie sound would fill the room, almost like distant crying or the wind howling. Then, after a few seconds of silence, another contestant would appear on the set, completely alone. No one would explain where the others had gone. They were just gone. And then the show would continue like nothing had happened. I remember feeling this strange mix of excitement and terror every time I watched it. It was like being drawn into a nightmare, but not being able to look away. I kept thinking that someone would explain what was going on, that there would be some sort of twist where it all made sense. But no. The show would just keep going, and the contestants would keep vanishing. And every time the contestants were replaced, the new one would act as if nothing had happened. It was like they had no memory of the previous people. The final round always took place in a completely black room. The contestants would sit on small stools and answer increasingly difficult questions. Ones like, what is your biggest fear? Or, what will happen when the clock strikes midnight? The eerie host would ask these questions in that hypnotic voice, and the contestants would often look terrified as they tried to answer. But here's the part that still freaks me out. If a contestant couldn't answer the question, or worse, if they gave a wrong answer, then they would vanish. No warning, no announcement. Just gone. And I'm talking completely gone, not even an explanation. The show would always end abruptly, with it to be continued message flashing on the screen in big, bold letters. I remember thinking I was going insane when I kept coming back to watch it. Why did I watch it? I have no idea. Maybe it was the mystery of it all, the intrigue, or maybe it was the horror of not knowing what the hell was happening. Here's the thing, though, no one else I know remembers the show. No one. I've asked my friends, my family, and even posted on Reddit before, but it's like the haunted quiz never existed. No one can find anything about it, and I can't even remember which network it aired on. It's like it was a secret show made for just a handful of people. I've tried to track down any kind of reference to it, but there's absolutely nothing online. Every time I bring it up, people think I'm joking or I've made it up. But I swear, the haunted quiz was real. It was a late-night game show where people vanished, where contestants disappeared, and it felt like the kind of show that shouldn't have ever existed. I don't know why, but I can't shake the feeling that the show was hiding something dark, something that they didn't want people to know. So, Reddit, please tell me, am I the only one who remembers this? Did anyone else watch the haunted quiz? Or was it just some weird, twisted memory of my childhood? I need to know if anyone else out there remembers it, because right now, I'm starting to think I might be going insane.